how you use them.
T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to the Biz Doc Podcast. We've got stats and news you can use to make yourself better, make your business better, make those better around you. If we're not making you better, don't watch. But if you want some topics, put them down in the comments and subscribe. I listen, and a lot of times these case studies and things that I bring forward are off of your suggestions because you're thinking about, wow, I saw this. What about that? What does that mean for me? And so I'll cover it. This week, as usual, I'm here with Kellyanne, the Swiss Army knife, pulling charts, pulling things together while I talk. And today we got a really good lineup of things. We got 3 stats up there. One I think is kind of interesting, but then there's one that's very interesting because we're coming into election season. And lastly, the truth about inflation going A to Z. And that may not be a truth you want to know about, but nonetheless, as we're sitting here filming at the beginning of fourth quarter 2023, it's real. And as usual, I want to unlock the secrets, and I'm going to unlock my brain with the vault. No sugar, no caffeine, unlock your brain, read all about it, and you can get your own black cherry, watermelon, cucumber mint, or coconut at Amazon.com. Check us out. There you go. Long-lasting hydration, energy, and focus. That's what it's all about, and it's real. Try it for yourself. Okay, Kellyanne, first. Interesting.
Very
so
interesting.
Every now and then Forbes comes out with a rating of like the value of sports teams. And sports around the world is really, there's been a lot of things happen. Formula One teams are worth more than ever. You have certain soccer teams, not just Manchester United, Man U as they're called. There's a lot of teams out there with a lot of money. But what's interesting is sometimes what's old is new and is the same again. Check out this chart. From Forbes and the valuation of teams around the world. And what's interesting about this, it shows you if you build a great asset, that great asset can improve in value. Whether you're running a t-shirt company in Berlin or a small software company in Silicon Valley, or you're running 3 dry cleaners in Dallas, Texas, you can continually increase the valuation, the value of your company, and that should be your objective. One day you'll pass it to your kids, or your kids won't want to run it and they'll just sell it after you're gone. Or you do have a son or daughter that wants to inherit that business. Knowing the valuation is so critical because also you may need to get financing. You may want to sell out and say, hey man, you know what? It's time to teach or do something else in life. But here it is. Of the 50 most valuable sports teams in the world, all 30 NFL teams are on the list, led by, love him or hate him, Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, an estimated $9 billion of value. Folks, it wasn't just real estate that went up in value when, the U.S. government went out, got drunk one night, and left the printer on printing money all night. It's not just that. Look at the Dallas Cowboys, $9 billion, Patriots, 7, Giants, 6.8, Rams, 6.9. So there's a bunch of 7s. But check this out. You say, wait a minute. What about things like the Yankees or Green Bay Packers? Well, Green Bay Packers is in here, but they're not that valuable. New York Yankees, $7.1 billion. Our very own Patrick Bet-David, a proud minority owner of that storied franchise. And the Dodgers at 4.8, Red Sox 4.5. And it's really interesting. You've seen this Drive to Survive. Have you seen Drive to Survive on Netflix?
Not yet.
You haven't?
Not yet.
Well, it's been only on 4 years, Kellyanne, so maybe you'll get around to it.
I'm behind the times. But
it's the story of Formula One and everything. But the most valuable 2 teams in there, Ferrari, storied Ferrari, worth $3.5 billion. Mercedes worth, actually Ferrari's worth 3.9. Mercedes worth a little over 3.5 at 3.8. And that's it. Then you go around soccer around the world. And what's really interesting, well, Man United, $6 billion. Real Madrid, $6.1 billion. And then you get to the NBA, Golden State Warriors, $7 billion. And that's the Bay Area, and that's just the value of that franchise. They're so successful winning championships, Steph Curry and all that's going on. Then you have the Knicks at $6.1 billion. So the whole point is, look, valuation matters. And this isn't just bragging rights among these teams. It's the ability to invest in a stadium. It's the ability to, liquidate. It's the ability to bring on another partner. its ability for, hey, I've got an idea. One minority partner may be retiring and another minority partner interested by the name of Patrick Bet-David becoming part of the New York Yankees ownership group. It's all that. This model works the same for your business. If you're not doing everything every day, or you're focusing on the valuation of your business, then you're making a mistake. And I just thought this was an interesting way to make the point. You go look at before and after. If your business isn't worth more tomorrow than it is today, even if you're running 2 dry cleaners, 3 dry cleaners, a little mini chain, mom and pop in Dallas, Texas, something's wrong. You should have more customers, bigger customer list, be more beloved, more sales each month, each year. That should be your focus in building your own value. So hats off to those of you who are driving. And if you want to talk about that, want to talk about building it, you can find myself, Patrick Bet-David, and more on Minect, www.minnect, or find Minect in the App Store for iOS or Android. And it is a way that people connect with each other to ask questions. You can ask me a question, I'll text back, or I'll give you a video answer with some links, and or we could just do a one-on-one Zoom. Get expert advice instantly. So if you want to talk about valuation, want to talk to someone like me or Patrick or many of the other wonderful experts on Minect, that's where you find us. So moving on, speaking of find us, America has found itself being bombarded now with political ads, and the presidential election is still 13 months away. But nonetheless, we've got, we got debates going on. Patrick, myself, and Vinny, and others, Adam, Milwaukee, then Simi Valley. Parts of us were at each one of those debates, checking out, seeing what's going on. Yeah, we feel the same way you did. It was like this interruption show that was going on in Simi Valley. But nonetheless, we got to talk to a lot of people and come to understand it. We're being bombarded with ads. So we're sitting there thinking, I wonder how much it takes to get elected. So I started doing some research. I said, maybe this would be interesting for folks. I know you're looking for news you could use, but look what I found on how much it takes to get elected. Let's pop this up. Check this out. So you've got the House of Representatives, and there's 400 and something of those, and then you have senators, and there's 2 per state, so there's 100 of those. And take a look what it takes to get elected in America. First of all, it takes about $2.8 million if you just want to get elected as a congressman. That's sort of the peak average. And it takes 10 times that to get elected as a senator. Well, senators are important. Senate can declare war, can override presidential vetoes, a lot of things like that. But nonetheless, look at that dollars. And these are dollars that are coming for you and I, because sometimes you have a representative or a senator that's going to be representing the interest of our industry. Maybe you are, in some industry that has a lot of environmental regulations or needless tariffs and things like this. Well, you would want to support senators and congressmen, $1,000 here, $1,000 there, do what you can, because you want to support the one that's going to get there and maybe help your industry with those kind of decisions. Well, it's going to cost $2.8 billion for that House winner and $26 million for a Senate winner. And take a look at this. Look at the amount that was spent on the presidential race in 2020. Oh my goodness. The total spend that year was that?
$14 billion.
$14 billion was spent end to end on all that. And you can see, that's the biggest. The purple lines is the presidential election. Everything underneath it was Senate and Congress. But look at that. That's the most we've ever spent in I don't know how long. And by the way, do this math. Okay, can you add this up for me, Kellyanne? Let's say 38% of people are Democrat votes are never going to move. And let's say 36% of people are Republican votes are never going to move. How much is that? 38 plus 36.
Wow.
Just shout it out when you know the answer.
It's 74.
What?
74.
74. So 74% of people, are not movable. Now let's add what some people call the protest votes, but they're the independent. And let's go with 4% to the Libertarian Party. Let's go 3% Libertarian Party.
Okay.
Total now?
77.
77. Now let's go 4% for Green.
It's 81.
81. And that's it. Let's just leave there. So that's 81%. So that 19% is what's left. So all that money, generally speaking, is spent on the 19%. But people will tell you it's really not that. It's really about half of that, or about 10 points, because inside that 19%, you have people that are movable, like in the middle of a war or a depression or something terrible, but they're really going to lean Democrat, and some are really going to lean Republican. So I am told that there's a maximum of 15% of the people that you can move. Guess what? Those billions of dollars, that's how much billions of dollars was spent to move only that many people, because everybody else is locked in. So I thought that was very, very interesting to look at it that way. All those ads and everything to move about 15% of the people for an election. Tell me that's not crazy.
It is.
So when they come knocking at your door, remember. So I have a follow-up chart here. You got the next one? Yep. Now, if you do decide when they're knocking at your door and you do decide to give them $1, ready for this? Only 56 cents is actually going to go to the advertising, because 10% of it goes to the cost of knocking on your door, and then 9% is the cost of holding cocktail parties and other events for you, or paying to get a permit and security to do a rally at a local, high school football stadium, or if you do something like that. Then about 8% for salaries, 7% for whatever, and 6% admin. And strategy and research. What is strategy? You just make ads that piss people off. 4%. So just remember, just like when you give to a charity and they have those charity scorecards that say, hey, when you give to the Feed the Children charity, only 40% goes to Feed the Children. Now, I'm not saying that's the accurate amount. I'm saying those are the scorecards they get. And there are some charities out there that they'll tell you, boy, they get a AAA rating because 88% goes to whatever it is you're trying to save. Feed the children, whatever it is, save the whales, whatever it is. But that's rare, and that's why those charities get big, giant gold stars. I wish there was a gold star for political campaigns to say how much gets to the kind of things I want it to get to. In this case, 56 cents on the dollar goes to media, which is out there, and then there's campaign events of 9%. So only 65% is actually getting to an advertising or a campaign event to make things happen. Everything else, these guys are the ones that are along for the ride, making salaries and getting an admin cost during the course of elections. So just remember that. 2/3 of it will probably get to helping get elected, but 1/3 of it's going up in smoke, baby, because those people don't work for nothing, and every 2 years when it's time for elections, the wolves are out in force. Anyway, did I have one more in here in the election? Do we have one more that was in there? Oh, this is even better. I remember this. Okay. Take a look at this. This is what the election winners spend versus the runner-up. Kevin McCarthy in California outspent his opponent, and he's number one. In other words, the most excess spending by $21 million. So he spent $21 million more than the person he beat. Nancy Pelosi spent $19 million more than the person she beat. Wait a minute. Nancy Pelosi has been in Congress how long?
Forever.
Right? She's been in Congress since 2 years before the Capitol building was even built. We're talking old. And yet she has to spend $19 million more than the person challenging her.
That's
you know what
crazy.
that tells you? You've been here long enough. And if you have to outspend your opponent by that much to keep your butt in Washington, we don't need term limits. We need jail. It's like you need to be gone. And now take a look down at the bottom. It goes the other way too. Up in Minnesota, there's a lot of Somalis. There's a lot of Muslim people up there. And Ilhan Omar, she underspent by $6.5 million because the people up there wanted a woman with her belief structure and where she comes from so badly that it didn't matter that the opponent spent that much. And she's junior. I think she's only been around for 2 elections, maybe 3, because remember, in House Representatives, every 2 years, election, every 2 years. So check that out. Isn't that interesting? That she underspends, but she wins anywhere. And then there's AOC, which is sort of in the middle. Is she outspent her opponent by $5.5 million, right? And so she spends $5.5 million, wins the election, and she's not any smarter. So go figure that. But I just thought this is interesting because entrepreneurs, business leaders, they're coming to us for this money. They're coming to us, and they're all coming to super PACs and companies that can give unlimited money. But we're part of this. So before you jump in the pool, make sure you're supporting someone that's going to actually be helping you, just not automatically supporting somebody there. You know, Kim and I, we support a couple candidates that represent things that we feel very, very passionate about that are in other districts across the United States. One's in Arizona, spends a lot of time supporting entrepreneurs and veterans. We feel very strongly about veterans getting benefits, especially if they're wounded, permanently disabled veterans. And so there's a couple we support, not with millions of dollars, but we support those candidates because their voting record says that they're faithfully doing this. So if it's going to help something you believe in, if it's going to help your industry or something around your business, those are the ones to support. And it's not always the one that's next door, although you should support your local candidates because they should be representing your community at large, and with yard signs, whatever you can do to help. But I thought that was also very, very interesting and informative to you to talk about what's going on, in terms of Washington and where the money goes and who gets elected. Pretty interesting. Kevin McCarthy, $21 million more.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Omar, $5 million less.
Good for him.
I do not need to outspend you. That's it. Now, let's get to real news you can use. So I got a couple questions from you, and thank you for bringing them into the chats. They said, hey, Biz Doc, they're talking about inflation on a national scale. And on a national scale, they say inflation's going down. I don't see prices going down. It says, can we analyze this? Because I've seen gas go down a little bit. A guy that has a small trucking company said diesel's been down, so his operating costs are down a little bit. But he says everything else is still expensive. And so what I found was a very interesting set of charts, and if we can go to that here, that talk about inflation may have gone down, but not all the price of things have gone down. So take a look. In the top left there, you can see what is the percent change in consumer price index by category. When you look at all items, they're up 17% over 2020. So in other words, when we got into COVID, the inflation then started, we got out of COVID, got back to work from home was going down, return to office was going up, all that was going on. It is 17% more expensive for all the things that are in your household. So what are those things? You're right. The gas pump may have gone down, and you see eggs. Let's look at eggs right below it. Remember eggs shot up and everybody said if you owned eggs, you were rich?
Yeah.
He said, well, now they're still up 27%, but look at that spike. Eggs were up at one point over 80% versus mid to end of 2020. So over 3 years ago, they were up 80%. Now it's only 27%. Gasoline still up 24% since, as you can see, gasoline really went down during COVID. Nobody was driving. We were told to be locked at our homes. And if you weren't driving, there was a lot of gas around and gas stations lowered the price. Electricity is still 24%. Meat, 22%. Food at home, 24%. So now let's look at the things that you don't have to buy. Are you okay? Kleenex, tissues.
I need Kleenex.
Still up, make something up, 20%.
20%.
Still up 20%. But now look at here some optional things. You don't need to buy the new car unless your car was stolen or completely totaled. You don't need a used car for the same reason. But used cars are up 44% baseline value. I'm selling one of my cars, and it is up. It's up about 25% versus the baseline I looked up for 2020, had I sold it then. I find it shocking. There's a few more miles on it. It's still in great shape. I take great care of my cars. That's it. But new vehicles up 21, used cars up 44. Airline fares are now minus 1%. In other words, airline fares have come back. Why? They're trying to make money and they're getting you and I back traveling again. Hey, Disneyland's open again. It's expensive as hell, but if you can get there, enjoy the summer. So as you can see, life on average is still 17% more expensive than 2020. So if your salary did not go up by at least 17.5% since 2020, you are behind in your purchase power, and the pain you may be feeling is real, which is why I say this, and I'm going to move the conversation here. So many of us, including me, have had to raise prices a little bit to cover some of raw material costs. And when I say me, I'm on the board of 2 companies. I know what I'm talking about in terms of looking out, making pricing decisions and whatnot. We raised prices a little bit, not a lot. But we also took a look at the stars in our business and said, hey, these stars in our business, you know, we made a little bit of a move on salary for them. Why? Because we understand the inflation effect. We want to keep stars. And that may be something that you need to do as well. You can't do it across the board, because if everybody goes, okay, we're raising salary 20%, raising prices 20%, that's called runaway inflation. And guess what's going to happen? Yep, Jerome Powell going to be raising rates. And they think coming up on Halloween, November 1st, when the Fed meets again, that he's probably going to be raising another 0.25%. We're already hearing about home interest rates cracking 8% for very good credit, which is defined as 675 to 700. You're in the very good credit zone, you know, and then like 750 to 800, you're in the excellent credit. Over 800 is exceptional credit. But a lot of people are sitting right there, 725, and they say, look, you've got very good, excellent credit. It's still 8%. 8% for a mortgage right now, which means it's half the dollars you could borrow versus 2020, when that mortgage would have been 4%. Half the dollars. Half. But home prices are up 20%. So it's like, wait a minute, I can only afford half the house, but they're up 20%. So you go from, you know, fairly reasonable size house to small house to townhouse. And so now you could probably only afford a townhouse or a condo versus you could afford maybe a medium house going back years ago. That's what happens. That's a slippery slope. So, you know, you don't want to go be part of the inflationary price raising cycle, because it's all going to come back to bite you. But speaking of coming back to bite you, and speaking of making a comeback, the case study is Disney. Now, many people ask about the shirts. What are these racing shirts? See, that says right there? Pete. Pete was with Williams Formula One. This is an authentic Williams Formula One shirt that I got many years ago. Williams used to be a championship team. Now they're trying to make a comeback. Well, guess what? I thought that was an appropriate shirt to wear. And at the time, they were sponsored by Royal Bank of Scotland, you know, AT&T, Philips, and these fine people here. Accenture, Bridgestone, you know, people you know about. Thomson Reuters, a big news organization. So I don't wear these as sponsors. I'm not paid on these. These are authentic F1 shirts, and I wear each one with a theme or a reason. And this theme is Disney. From what was once a championship team trying to make a comeback, Williams Formula One, to Disney, where Bob Iger drove big championships. Now he's come back and he's finding life is a little more tougher. We're going to dive in to just see how tough and why on earth is Disney in the headlines with, are they selling ESPN? What are they doing? So I'm going to run over, I'm going to grab my ball, I'm going to run over to Studio B and find my board and tell you all about it. All right. I found my board. Don't know what your favorite flavor is. I love that watermelon. So we're going to talk about Disney. There's been a lot of things that's been going on, and a lot of headlines. Bob Iger this, Bob Iger that. Let's step back and look at it. And I just want to take you like on a 30, 40,000 foot view to kind of understand what has been happening and what I call the Disney dilemma. I couldn't think of anything great like Star Wars, like The Revenge of the Sith or something like that. You know, couldn't do it, you know, or, you know, The Empire Strikes Back, whatever the hell it was. But I call it the Disney dilemma. So let's go take a look at what's up. So, The Return of the Jedi. Once upon a time, Bob Iger, this nice man, really did a fantastic job. 15 years he led Disney after the reign of Michael Eisner, and people that were there said it was a reign of terror. And when Bob came back, it was much different. And there's a lot of great things that happened. He was also a deal maker. He went out and bought the Fox library. Very expensive. You know, there's a lot of things that came in under his watch, but nonetheless, people have said in the recent era, it was sort of a golden years for Disney. And he writes this book, The Ride of a Lifetime, which many people, including me, think is a great book by a CEO, giving you, war stories about Disney, but also some practical insights into how he manages and his philosophies. Well, 2 years he wasn't there. He's standing by as an advisor, and then this is the recent picture of him at the Allen & Company conference. It's up in Idaho. And then once a year, Allen & Company gets together with technology and media, and they're up there, and it's designed to do deals. Why was he up there? He was up there as a member of media, as a member of one of the 2 or 3 biggest media companies, period. But he was also up there looking for deals. What kind of deals was he looking for? Well, let's go take a look at what he was brought in to mop up. Because in the 2 years when he was gone, a guy named Bob Chapek was in charge, and some of the things that were happening were carryovers from Iger, so he was a great CEO, but some things that he had put in place, weren't working as well. A lot of things were working as well, but then Chapek reorganized, did a lot of things, and then he said, please, Bob, come back. Please come save us, which I call the return of the Jedi. So what's going on? Well, first of all, let's call it Iger 2.0. He has a big job. So our hero returns. Let's just call him all the wars he's got to fight. What does he got to fight? Let's take a look. First of all, there's corporate organization. Chapek had reorganized things on the creative side, and Chapek, by the way, came from theme parks where he had done very well, and part of the reason he got promoted to CEO is because he had done really well on the theme parks, raising attendance, bringing in more revenue and all that. So he nonetheless came in and decided to reorganize, and Bob went back to the way he had it. So it's like in 2 years, Chapek moved all the furniture around in the living room, and then Iger comes in and moves the furniture back in the living room. But it's not that easy. This is billions of dollars of corporate furniture, reorganizing corporate divisions and reprioritizing corporate projects. So that living room is freaking expensive. Then what does he got to do? The balance sheet. For those of you not familiar with finance, a balance sheet is where assets and liabilities, like big loans that you had, because it was $71 billion to get all that library from Fox. Okay, so you've got that debt to be taken care of, and let's see, have interest rates moved recently? Oh, yes, those interest rates are way up. So now you've got interest rates up, so the debt that they've got on any of the floating rates, and corporate is pretty standard at floating rates, but they also do a thing called hedging, which we'll talk about another time. But nonetheless, that debt is still sitting there, and you got to figure out what you're going to do with that. Next, what did he have? Hulu. Well, most people don't know, and I'm going to step forward here. Did you know that Disney basically bought all of Hulu, but part of it was a $27.5 billion IOU to Comcast to buy the rest of it? Bet you didn't know that. And so that was done. That's due in 2024. So guess what? Welcome back, Bob. You've been gone 2 years. Remember that Hulu thing? Ha-ha. Here it is. So we have a bill coming due, and that's to own all of Hulu. They went and they talked to, I think it's Comcast, and they said, Brian, hey, maybe we could, and Brian's like, no, the price is the price. But they've agreed to start sooner so that Disney can have some flexibility on, how it's going to finance that and actually pay them. Then theme parks. Well, they must grow, but then there's been a bunch of controversy about the prices at the theme parks and the cost of parking and stuff. And there is also this controversy on, how the theme parks are going to operate with the state of Florida, and Governor DeSantis was going head-to-head with Chapek and then head-to-head with Iger. Well, guess what? That's not easy, so theme parks have got things that need attention. Then Marvel and Star Wars. You know what? I think the limit is 185 Marvel movies, and what are we on, like 183 or something? I'm making that number up, but the point is, at some point in time, you run out of characters and storylines on Marvel, and we all know Star Wars has basically come to its story arc, so where do you go from here? So they've made bank on that on the last decade. My goodness, the movies and everything that were there. So, but guess what? All good things come to an end, and right? And then you have the last Indiana Jones movie where Harrison Ford is basically an old man, and where do you go from here? So you've got a bunch of, these are called platforms or storylines or story arcs that are running out of characters, and what next, what now? Then you've got ESPN. it is declining. They've been losing subscribers. ESPN's Plus is an individual subscriber thing. They've been losing on that. They've also been losing money because there's a very challenging sports landscape. This past year, they laid off a bunch of very high dollar talent on there because they're like, I don't see that it's bringing in the viewers or keeping the viewers any better. And then when all this is done, Bob is going to retire again. And so we need to find a new guy again. And when Bob retired the first time and it was Chapek, it only lasted 2 years. He rearranged all the furniture in the corporate living room, billions of dollars of stuff, and now what? So here we go. So, anybody tired yet? I'm tired. That's a big list. So, let's take a look at the stock. This is a 5-year look at Disney stock. So 5 years, it's down 30%. Over the past 5 years, down $35, down 30%. I think I said 35% a minute ago. But see, that's a challenge. So in the midst of all those things he's got to do on the other page, he's got to make this go up, you know? And there's only one Viagra for stock price, and it's called EBITDA, right? You got to go get the profit of the company up. Well, this is a complicated company. You got theme parks, you got Hulu that you own part of. That big bill you got to pay, and all these things are going on. You have the intellectual property you own. You've got channels like ABC. I think they also own Nat Geo and ESPN and ESPN2, 3, 4, 5, International, and ESPNU, right? There's like 7 ESPNs now. It's like leaving rabbits in a cardboard box in a garage. It just keeps going. But it's not making money the way it used to be. So now, next. The revenue is actually growing and doing pretty well. Look at the revenue growth. There is the pre-COVID year. We were on a growth year. This is during COVID, so this is a lot of theme parks here. Okay, so now let's look at this side. The problem is the future. It's not that you're growing, as you saw in the previous one. It's where do you go from here? Because remember, the stock market is a hungry beast. It wants more profit. It wants growth. Growth of profit more than growth in revenue. Profit is value. Revenue is just revenue. Revenue without profit is not necessarily value. More profit without growth in revenue is value. It's a one-way street. Profit drives value. So now Disney breaks itself up into 2 areas that it likes to talk about. Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution and Disney Parks Experience and Products. Parks Experience and Products are right here. We can see the COVID effect. And then, hey, we all went back to Disneyland and got our ears again. Meanwhile, what's going on in media and entertainment is just kind of up and down. And by the way, some of these peaks are hit movies. So if you're running out of good scripts and you're running out of good storylines and you're running out of ways to put another Star Wars out there, you are not going to have these spikes. So this is the issue. So Bob has got to manage the operating income or profit out of these 2 divisions have a lot of things in them. Well, I'm going to show you something. I said it wasn't going to be a deep case study, but I'm going to drop into something here so you can just kind of get a flavor for it. This is just Disney Media and Entertainment. The blue is linear network operating income. Let me translate. ABC, Nat Geo, and ESPN. And as you can see, 2020, it's been lumpy. And then the little red ones on top, content sales. Everything above the line is positive operating income. Everything below the line is negative, meaning they're investing. It's costing them money. So you can see the content sales and licensing was up here with the blue on the positive side, and now it's down here. So 2 of the things that our hero Bob Iger has got to do in 2.0 is deal with the direct-to-consumer operating loss. Some of that, I'm told, is Hulu. So it's complicated. It's not just we sell cars, we sell trucks, and now we sell electric ones. That's Ford. They're all vehicles. There's some things in here that are marketed and sold and built and created very differently from one another, and it makes it very challenging to run it. So what's happening right now? So Bob is in there and he's trying to do things. Now I bring you to the headlines. It says, is Iger stumbling? Is there any hope for Iger? How will we save him in 2 hours and 20 minutes before this movie ends? Well, here's the rumors and truth. Apparently, he's discussed selling the ABC networks to Nexstar, and said at the Allen and Company conference, he was being interviewed by CNBC. I think he was being interviewed by David Faber, who is on the morning show there and all the way up to midday on CNBC. A great analyst, great guy, level-headed guy, David Faber, one of my favorites. And he goes to interview Bob Iger, and Bob Iger starts saying things that were causing his comms and PR people to have heart palpitations off camera. Yeah, linear TV is not core. Linear TV means ABC and ESPN. Linear TV means Nat Geo. So he goes, that's not really core. Why don't you just say, yeah, and you're interviewing me here at Allen and Company. Does anybody want a sports network? Sports network, come sit next to me at dinner, we'll talk about it. That's basically what he was saying. So then Entertainment Studios, and this is Byron Allen. I'm pretty sure Byron Allen. He comes up and says, listen, by the way, that's not an M, that's a B. 10 billion. Listen, I got financing ready. I can get 10 billion. I want to buy ABC, FX, Nat Geo, and the other channel networks. So Byron Allen of Entertainment Studios says, give me your TV business. Just give me your TV business. You can keep the ESPN over there, but all of these, he wants to put it into his stuff because he believes he could do it. You know what this is called? This is called focus. You've heard Biz Doc talk about it. He says, this is all I do. I can do it with focus, and I think with my focus, I can do more than you. So how about 10 billion, and I'll take it. They then told them, we're not ready to do that. Okay, then ESPN, they openly said it needs cash, and it needs a strategic partner. Now, whenever someone needs cash, what you always hear, in the news media, they're looking for a strategic partner. Listen, it's not what you say when, you've got your son or daughter, you want to get them out of the house. I wish they'd find a strategic partner. In other words, get married to somebody with cash. But that's exactly what it means in the world of corporate M&A. We need to find a strategic partner. In other words, strategic meaning they're in your industry together. Partner meaning they're going to merge with them. And so Iger also spoke to the sports leagues about ESPN, and they weren't interested. And what came out of that was people that were whispering after the Iger meetings that said, hey, our understanding is if he can't find a league or someone to come in as a strategic partner, and you can see how a sports league could be a strategic partner, that basically what's about to happen is that they're going to have to spin it off. So that's what's happening right now. So a lot of headlines that show our hero Bob Iger 2.0 hasn't had any wins yet, and he's trying to reorganize the furniture in the living room to get there, and he ends up in a headline, in a controversy, minding his own business. They all go on strike. He said something, and there was a guy that put a viral video out on the X, Twitter, and basically said, you names, calling him names. You make $27 million a year. We're out here. All we want is a little cut when it's digital or AI or you use our voice and storyline. I can't believe you. So he found himself in the middle of this, rightly or wrongly, being dragged into it and, being burnt in effigy, as it were, and in the middle of that. So no big deals have happened yet. No big changes have happened yet. And, that's where he's at. So what is my 2 cents? I've seen a lot of these things, so I can do like David Faber or anybody like this, or Jim Cramer, and I can come up and give my 2 cents. But I'm being pretty practical about this, and I'm being non-emotional, and I'm being non-traditional. So I've got no traditions, anything, oh, you've worked for Disney all these years, we can't do this. No. I'm looking from the outside saying what seems to make sense. So I think it's almost a leveraged buyout quant. Keep the parks and the media libraries, but sell everything else that's not nailed down. Here's what I mean. ESPN is coming to a life cycle, and they're in multi-year erosion of subscribers against what? The sports leagues have their own OTT offerings, right? NFL Sunday Ticket has really been the OTT for the NFL, if you think about it. Now somebody else is doing it, and what is it? Amazon's got it, I think, now, or wherever it is. And you look at MLB, they have their app, and I can watch all the games on MLB Network right on my phone. So I can even get highlights on MLB. I used to go to ESPN to hear Chris Berman make joking, funny names some 20 years ago about my favorite teams. Guess what? Doesn't happen anymore. Doesn't. I can just go to MLB Network and they have MLB in studio and they're giving me highlights. I don't go to ESPN for anything baseball, and I love baseball. If there was value and it was incremental and it was entertaining, I'd go there, but I don't. And it's happening with a lot of other consumers throughout the sports league. So take a look at this. The sports leagues have their own offerings. That cuts into what ESPN can do with rights and highlights. Then the sports leagues are making other deals. You've heard what the NFL did with Amazon for one of the nightly football games during the year, and Apple is rumored to be backing up the truck with $2 billion over a 4-year period to have global rights to Formula One. Now remember, Netflix is doing Drive to Survive. Do you think maybe Apple picks that up? Who knows? But Apple is talking about pulling all the rights everywhere and putting them on Apple TV, and at the end of 4 or 5 years, there will be no organization in sports anywhere. And right now, ESPN has got Formula One here in the United States, that it would all be Apple TV. Then, here's my idea. What if you take a guy who is rumored to be really smart, and I say rumored because I don't know him personally, but everything I've read about him is Jimmy Pitano is really a smart guy when it comes to running networks. What if you take out the weight and the leverage and everything that's on with Disney and spin out ESPN and the TV assets to be led by Jimmy, and just spin it out as a public company and say, okay, Jimmy, for better, for worse, you're like Warner Brothers Communication. You're a big collection of channels now. Live or die, make it work. We're going to spin it on the stock market, take a lot of that money to Disney and put it against our debt and restructure. That's what we're going to do. But here, I think that's one angle. Also, cinema is woke and the public isn't paying. There have been a lot of Disney movies that have had themes in there that are for narrow audiences. And we all know what the narrow audiences are. I'm not saying that's a good audience or a bad audience. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm not discriminating. I'm just saying if I make a movie that has these narrow audience things in there, that audience may not like it. That audience may not appreciate it. This audience likes it. But don't I want to get ticket sales from everybody? Don't I want Disneyland to be the happiest place on earth, not the most segregated place on earth in terms of different people, different viewpoints? No, I want to be the happiest people under a big tent, because big tents have a lot of tickets that sell, and that's called a blockbuster. And that's what you're there to do. But experts are saying, by the way, that it takes at least 5 years to greenlight and launch from development to the first one out a new slate or a new platform of movies, or to have a regime change of people that put broad themes that cover everybody into the movies and don't put narrow themes that piss off these folks or these folks. And I think you all understand what I mean, but I'm told that it takes 5 years to put a new crew in, greenlight a bunch of movies, get scripts, directors, packages, call the agents, get the actors and actresses that are going to do their appear, or they're going to be CGI, or going to be voiceover, whatever it is. It takes time to do that. So I think that cinema is in trouble, and they're chasing Netflix and Apple and deca-billion spends each year on the media. But I think this gets TV out from under you. You focus on the theme parks and the media libraries. That's what I think. That's my 2 cents. Who knows how it's going to shake out, but I wanted to take you on a little from the ride of a lifetime to a bumpy ride through the current time so you can understand what Bob Iger's doing, and more importantly, what the hell is going on at the House of Mouse. And I hope this has been helpful to you to kind of dive down a little bit and understand that. Now, I'm going to head right back over to the main studio and wrap us up. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. That wasn't a huge deep dive into Disney, because the purpose is just to kind of show you what on earth is going on now, what's up with those headlines. If you like that case study, you'll probably like one of these that's up on the screen. Also about Disney and Hulu and the things that they've done over the years. I think you'll enjoy those case studies as well. Again, I mentioned it earlier. If you want to talk to me, you want to talk to Patrick or any one of the Valuetainment team, Vinny or Adam, Saucecast, you can find us on Minnect, M-I-N-N-E-C-T, and right there in the App Store and the Android market. Go download it, find an expert you like, and get answers you want. All from Valuetainment, because we want to bring information to you. If it's not useful, you're not here, and we want to be useful every time you tune in. Thank you very much. I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc, and as I like to say, I hope I left you better than I found you.